Hi, it's Johannes from Noisebud again. Today I gonna show you a compressor that I made about a year ago, but I never released it because I had a bit of a issue to explain how it works. It's a mastering compressor, but it's so aggressive, so you can use it really creatively to, well, while mixing or producing. But I made it for mastering, and I'm gonna show you first how, or let's just go through the controls first. Here it is. It's called Quill, and it consists of 3 panels. The first is Sidechain Panel. This is where you set which part of the spectrum the compressor will react to. It's just a sidechain, so it's a single band compressor. It will work with the whole spectrum, so it will work with all frequencies like a single band compressor. But you can make it act on, let's say, 3000 hertz if you have a harsh mix. So you want the compressor to work harder when there's a lot of things going on 3000 hertz, for example. Or set it in so it's just compressing the kick. So every time the kick hits and you have a lot of information around, say 50 hertz, then it compresses. So that's the sidechain. The compressor part, it looks almost like any compressor, but instead of threshold, it has an amount. You will notice that you can basically use it at the threshold, but it's a bit different than the threshold. A threshold starts working when the signal goes above a certain decibel level, but with this compressor it will work the whole time. But you will notice that you can set it so it's very similar to a threshold. And makeup gain, attack and release, and then you have a curve portion. We're gonna talk about those settings later. Then we have the mix panel, and the mix consists of a delay. This delay, it's like pre-compression setting. It will delay the signal that goes into the compressor. It will not delay the sidechain. So you can make the compressor react on a transient, but you can set it so, let's say, it starts to compress 20 milliseconds after the transient occurred. That's the delay. Blend, it's so this this compressor is supposed to be used as a parallel compressor, so that's why there's a blend knob, wet and dry, and normally I'm about here when I'm mastering on the right side, so it's using most of the dry signal and just blending a little amount of the wet. But we're gonna show you with how to use this creatively, and then it's very fun to have an that and just go crazy. Channel link, very common in mastering that you separate the channels so that the left and right channel compress individually, and by that you get a broader, the stereo image will open up a little bit. So normally you want some correlation between the channels, so you're not that often on 0. But since it's a parallel, you can put it on 0 and the blend knob up here, and then the channels will stick together anyway. So that's the channel link and a bypass. So that's the basic of the compressor. Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit now about what you see in the display, and I'm gonna play. This is an old Techno track. It's squashed to pieces, so I put in 2 instances of dynameter. One before, this one to the left is the before meter, and to the right is the after the compressor, just so you can see how the dynamics change in the mix or in the compressor, because that's one is a misconception about compressors in mastering, is that everyone talks about compression like you controlling the peaks and make them less pointy, but actually very often in mastering you're using a compressor to make things more dynamic. So by using a parallel compression, you can set the compressor so that it doesn't compress the first part of the transient or the attack of a sound, and then starts to compress a little bit after the peak. And then when you blend that with the dry signal, you will actually have expanded the signal instead of compressing it. So it's very common, and that's what we do to give a track more life. So let's start to play around a little bit with this. Let's start by setting the sidechain. Okay, so I used a high pass and low pass filter to single out frequencies between 117 and 2000 ish. So that's what this compressor's gonna react to. And now we're gonna start to raise the amount knob. And yeah, we put it on 100% wet, so we just hear the compressor, and we use channel link at the moment. Let's see. And I can show you right away why I say that this is pretty aggressive. With attack and release on 0, we will have a lot of modulation distortion, but it sounds like this. This is an aggressive compressor. Raised attack. Oh. Okay, let's blend this with the dry signal and see what happens. So you can see in the before and after that the material actually is more dynamic, has more dynamics than the before. I'm not setting this up to sound particularly good. I'm more showing the principles of how to use it. Or this is the intended use of the compressor. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the display here. The yellow sign that you see, that's the peak follower. So if we set the amount to 0 and start to play, you will just see a straight line up here. As we start to raise the amount, you will start to see that the peak follower are starting to find the signal and starts to follow or invert. It's doing in invert follow, so it's start to find the peaks. Hitting play, and let's see that. And again, let's set it to 100% wet. So that's the peak follower. And even if you can't see that, everything changes a lot when we change the curve. The curve comes after the peak follower. So this curve is set to exponential right now, and that will use the information from the peak follower and will use that to control a VCA, voltage control amplifier. So voltage control, level control, volume knob, and will react to the peak followed signal exponentially. Set it to liner, it will be liner. That's very more subtle and will go really easy on the signal. And decibel is another flavor of exponential, and crush is also exponential, but it's crazy. Let's set it on crush and start to play and see how that sounds. So you can hear it's really aggressive, and you can have a lot of fun with this compressor. I'm going to write a little manual or a description of how to use it in every setting, but I don't have time this week, so it will be up sometime next week. And in the meantime, download it and have fun with it. It's really an amazing compressor, and when other compressors won't work, try Quill. You probably can set it up so it works for you. So that's it for this week's little plugin. Oh, hope you enjoy it. Have a great week and see you soon.